It was a nighttime race, really kind of dangerous track already because it's very dusty. So when people go off or put you in the dirt, as they say, it kicks up a lot of dust. I was going through a very fast section of the track. It was super dusty. It's kind of like driving through snow. Like you can't see more than 2 feet in front of you, and you're going at a very, very fast pace. So I kind of turned where I should have turned or thought I should have turned, ended up going off the track. And actually 4 cars were involved in this accident.
Wow.
I ended up spinning. Once I kind of realized, hey, like I stopped the car and I realized the first thing you got to do is like you just figure out where you are. Like, are you on track or off track? And once I realized I was on the track, I immediately look to my left and I see headlights coming at me.
What's up, everybody? It's me, Armand, back again with another episode. Today's guest, we have Derek Pocoroba. He's the founder and chief technology officer over at Trident Group. They're an end-to-end cybersecurity company. And Derek has seen and been through many cybersecurity events, the dangerous ones, the bad ones, the ones that I can't tell you more about, or else I'd have to kill you. Trident Group's grown to over 50 employees in the past few years through a pandemic and all sorts of other ups and downs. And they've been a really fun company to watch. In his free time, Derek likes racing cars. And we talk about what it's like to go over 100 miles per hour, to be bumper to other cars, inches away, racing down the track. This episode was really fun to film. Derek is someone I've known for a long time. He's a really awesome dude. Super cool. Lots to talk about, lots to learn. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Playhard Podcast.
Work hard, play hard. Work hard, play hard. Work hard, play hard.
Derek.
Work hard, play hard.
What's up,
Hello.
bud?
How's it going, sir?
It's going great. How's it going for you?
It's doing really well, actually. Busy, but good busy. So I can't really complain too much.
That's right. You are in an industry where you quite literally never sleep. Constantly.
No.
A lot keeping you up at night. And yeah, great to have you. Great to talk. You are the founder and CTO of Trident Group, which is a cybersecurity company, a very active industry these days. You want to speak to TG a little and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Started the company a few years ago with a couple of friends of mine. It's been an interesting journey and learned a lot over the last few years, and company's been growing. And as you kind of mentioned, cybersecurity is something that's really top of mind for a lot of people right now. Sadly, it's kind of all over the news, whether it's, war related, and not to be too political with things, it's been very politicized right now. Cyber warfare is pretty real. It's here. And I think people and companies see that now. So it's a very interesting industry we're in, and don't think it's going to slow down really anytime too soon. So.
Yeah. And I know during the last kind of time the market took a downturn, the pandemic, you guys actually ended up thriving because of the nature of the industry and how it's very active, especially in down markets. The bad guys are very active. How did that play out in the pandemic, and how do you guys expect to do that now?
Yeah, it was definitely a scary time, right? I think we were all in very uncertain times and didn't know what we were going to do. But, luckily my partners and I were very strong-willed and stubborn to survive, if you will. So we kind of just said, hey, if we can get through this, we can get through anything, and kind of doubled down and really shifted our focus. And to your point, some things did kind of stall, but other things really opened up. And our goal was just to be there for a lot of these customers and just help out as much as we can. And in the end, we got a lot of positivity out of that and a lot of loyal fans, if you will. So it was pretty cool to see. Proud to say, we didn't lay anybody off during the pandemic. We actually hired people. So we kind of used that to our advantage and said, hey, if we can get through this, we want to really kind of grow the business. And it's been happening ever since. And, barring any crazy recession things, we're kind of planning to do the same thing and just keeping grinding away. It's all we can do.
Yeah. And that's huge. The fact that you guys were growing and hiring people in this time when, early 2020, 2021, it was very difficult, very uncertain for. Yeah,
it was kind of almost
everyone.
Like unheard of. And, we were very big about communicating, our messaging and culture to our team. So we had, weekly stand-up calls, hey, how's everybody doing? If people needed time off for kind of mental health days and things like that, we were there for people. We didn't want to add, stress to an already kind of complex, stressful environment. So proud to say, I think we did pretty well in this whole thing. And, that's all we can do is just keep kind of moving forward. And, fortunately that we take our culture very, very serious here. And, that's been a huge key factor for our success, I feel, and very much ingrained in our DNA when we started this company. So I'm pretty proud to see that and see it pay off.
Yeah, culture is really important. And now you guys have grown up to, what is it, 50 or so employees?
Yeah, I think we're north of 50. I don't know the exact numbers, but in that 55-ish
Yeah.
range, give or take. So from where it was a few years ago to now has been pretty amazing journey to see this thing grow where we'd all fit in one room in one state, and now we're across multiple states and multiple different people and time zones now. So pretty rewarding to see that stuff kind of happen and grow. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. For those that don't know, Trident Group started in a closet. Fun fact, the three founders together in one room, all making calls.
Literally, it was a small little closet. So that was from the early days to, the offices now to being kind of nationwide is pretty impressive. And then even to have customers that are worldwide is pretty exciting to see. So,
yeah. And so how did you instill that culture into the DNA from the very beginning? Because I know that was something important to the three of you starting it, but how did you manage to hold on to that and keep it growing as the company grows itself?
It's hard, right? I mean, I think a lot of books you read, and a lot of people talk about, hey, culture, and it's easy to control when it's, everybody can fit in one room and you can kind of keep preaching it. But with work from home, as you kind of shift to this different mindset, it's very hard, right? So for us, it's, whether it's kind of, extra days off that we kind of give to our customers, mental kind of stress days, kind of half days off here and there. We'll try to do, now that people are kind of coming back and more welcome to meeting again in person, doing happy hours again, lunches, dinners, team building events. We're looking at ways that we can do team building events virtually. So how do we kind of keep the people engaged and, just kind of have that positivity? And I think our sometimes repetitive messaging drives people crazy for the people that have been there for a few years, but they also are our biggest advocates. And I love when we hire somebody new and one of our more seasoned people kind of preaches the messaging without us saying it. So it's pretty cool to see that get ingrained and instilled. And I think all we can do is kind of continue to plant those seeds, and hopefully they, grow and flourish and kind of grow on their own, even if we don't necessarily say those things directly. So,
yeah, that's really awesome. And now, when you were first starting, why cybersecurity? Like, what was the problem that you set out to solve at that time?
Yeah, a couple of things on that actually. So I've always kind of been fascinated with, cybersecurity. My background's always been kind of IT, that, engineer nerd, so to speak. And, so I was always kind of fascinated with it. And I worked at various companies over the years in different sizes and, saw that they didn't always fit the right need for the market. And sometimes I think we're leaving things on the table. And that was kind of the whole premise of the company, was saying, hey, I think we can do something a little bit better. I think we can give a better, what we call our kind of white glove approach to things, and just being a better advocate for people, and, much more of a prescribe first and then, or, diagnose first then prescribe, versus just saying, hey, go take these pills and move on. It's like, well, let's figure out what's actually wrong, using a kind of a doctor analogy, like what's really wrong with you first, and then go actually try to fix it, versus just saying, here, go buy a bunch of things you may or may not need. And then with cybersecurity, it's not going to go away. It's top of mind. It's, unfortunately, this forever thing we're living in, and, people are so hyper connected now, and it's a very scary, real thing. And I really think we can, have this impact to really protect people, protect businesses, protect other companies from going out of business. It can be extremely costly if you do fall victim to a cyber event. And I think most of us know either someone that's been a part of fraud or a victim of fraud, identity theft. Those are all various forms of, cybersecurity incidents. So yeah, that was a big driver for us.
Nice. And from your engineering background, I recently found out that you were let's say SE, I believe, before starting Trident Group. It was
Solutions
SE
engineer,
on the network side. I always knew you as the cybersecurity guy. I had no idea. Was this something you kind of learned along the way? Like, you saw the need for security and then you dove in, or did you have some sort of background and then managed to transfer that over?
Yeah, good question. So I kind of grew up on the, what you call like the networking side there, but usually when you're building out these complex networks, security should, it's not always often part of these things baked up front. But you're always tasked with this compromise of making things easy to use, but also being very secure. So it's kind of this constant cat and mouse game and, things like that. So I worked with various, networking security equipment over the years, and I've always had a fascination for it, and was able to kind of fortunately pick things up, fairly easy, and kind of look at things and be able to kind of break down complex things into a more, maybe human digestible format to kind of help offer and sell the solution, so to speak, and translate that to a human form. So, cybersecurity has always been kind of part of me. And I think even when you're younger, you're kind of a quote unquote hacker, so to speak, trying different things and breaking things and realizing, wow, that's kind of cool. You can, trick the logic of something. So it's always kind of been in there, but there's definitely people out there that are way, way, way smarter than me at this type of stuff. And that's why we hire those people and turn them loose to help better protect our customers out there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And something you said actually is really interesting. You said trick the logic. How does that play into a hacker? Like what a hacker does? Because it kind of makes sense in the pieces are there, but can you connect the dots?
Yeah. So probably the best way to describe it is like if you can, like one of my favorite forms of this is called social engineering, right? Where think of it like the whole con man, con person, scenario where maybe I trick you. Yeah, exactly. Where maybe I trick you into using a fake credit card or buying something that doesn't exist or selling you something that's not quite built yet, or
clicking on a link.
Yeah, calling you, telling you I'm from the IRS and you owe $10,000 back taxes, go buy gift cards and give them to me, right? So like those are kind of forms I think that people have seen. So you're tricking a human logic, which is one form of it, which is still, a form of social engineering. But then like in computer terms, you're maybe tricking the logic of maybe the way a program behaves, or if you can maybe modify the code or insert your own code and get the software to do different things, it might give you access to maybe things you shouldn't have. So if you think about it, maybe an example might be if you're like a healthcare company and you have all these, personal records or healthcare records, and I can maybe trick your database into giving me the information back, even though I might not have access. That's a form of, kind of hacking, if you will, and getting things to do a unexpected result than what they were intended for. It's very cool because, like with engineering, it's kind of like it works or it doesn't. So you're kind of somewhat bending the rules of sometimes, applications and programming and, hardware. I mean, like you can be tricking hardware and tricking doors to open locks and, picking locks as a form of cybersecurity and things like that. So lots of really neat subfields within cybersecurity for people to get into.
Yeah. They say it a lot. It's an umbrella term. There's so much that goes into cybersecurity. Kind of my understanding of, the difference between someone who's a network engineer versus security engineers, the network engineer is trying to keep the business going forward versus the security engineers trying to reduce the risk of the business. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes it's a very different type of person, and you see some sort of like internal clashes happen.
It is. And there's always this kind of, joking cat and mouse game where networking people get blamed first if something doesn't work. And security is just their goal is to lock it down and make it not work. So got to have this compromise of, hey, we obviously want our applications to work and people to use our software, but you got to have it secure too. So I think, the good news from what I've seen is the last several years, a good kind of merge of those teams. Often they can be the same people. Sometimes they're different teams. But the good news, I think, is because cybersecurity is so relevant now, like the quote unquote networking and security people are generally speaking playing better together, I think. So the goal is to, not have breaches, and because at the end of the day, nobody wants to lose their job, right? So they want to do what's right for their employer, hopefully, and not make things too wide open. But yeah, there's always that kind of constant cat and mouse struggle of first to blame, proving guilty until innocent type of a thing.
Yeah, no one wants a RGE. What was it
Yes,
that guy said? Resume generating.
Yeah, you don't want those. And then, unfortunately, they do happen though, and they're luckily far and few between. But I've seen a few of those happen over my career and seen some things implode, and it's not pretty. Let's put it that way.
For those wondering, an RGE is a resume generating event. Whenever something so bad happens, you got to get that resume ready because you're getting out.
Yeah. Usually, hopefully it's not something that, you self-inflicted. And, that's another good thing too, is, for us, we try to build that culture of, hey, like mistakes happen, let's own up to it. Let's do what's right. Our big thing is, mistakes are okay as long as you don't keep making the same ones over and over again. Then it becomes, potentially an issue. So, we want to have that culture of always learning, that kind of white glove approach, and, mistakes happen, communicate often, communicate up, because we are like a team at the end of the day. So that helps us, kind of going back to your culture question, kind of instill that safety net that people feel safe enough to, I don't want to say make like major mistakes, but, again, mistakes happen. I've made plenty in my career and still make them all the time. So as long as we kind of learn from them, that's like the most important thing. So.
Yeah, I think that's really important as well. I've always believed that a big part of growth comes from being comfortable with making those mistakes. And if you are constantly worried about losing your job at any slip up, that's definitely going to be a very stressful and very difficult. Slow growth happens there. But at the same time, it's like, how do you balance the fact that you like little slip ups, you can't really afford that in the security world. So it's definitely an interesting spot, and it's good to see that the culture exists there.
Yeah, you got to have a strong management to kind of back you up. Because to your point, like mistakes can happen, and sometimes small mistakes can be very costly. So having the right kind of upper management buy-in to support you and back you up and let you learn and fail, I think is very important. I've been fortunate over the years to have some really good mentors that have trained me, and I've made some pretty, dumb moves over the years. And it's like, man, like I'll never do those again. And you definitely learn from them quickly. So.
Yeah, I imagine that, I don't know too much into the coding world, but a typo in coding is not as good as, or it's not like a typo in an email is not as bad as.
Yeah, there you go.
A typo in coding.
Email is no big deal. You might just have some grammar police come yell at you. A typo in code means something may not work, or it may break something else, and you're pulling your hair out. Already stressful enough.
Yeah. So speaking of stress, I know you've been a part of helping some pretty big instances that have happened out there, without getting, sharing too much detail. But I want to talk more about the handling of that stress. So whenever you're in like this critical event, like something really catastrophic happens to a company, and they ask you to come in and like, we've been hacked, we need your help to solve this problem. How has that impacted you, personally and mentally, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's a very tough situation. So like in IT in general, I think those of us that have been kind of engineers have been through plenty of stressful scenarios over the years. Whether you're doing like a cutover and something doesn't go right, responding to an outage, like we're almost trained, from the beginning to jump up at 2 a.m. and handle an emergency call. And it becomes kind of almost second nature once you do a few of these. But in a cybersecurity incident, it's even probably more so stressful. So really our goal, depending when we're brought in during the whole cycle of things, if it's early enough, is to help coach and walk people through, okay, here's what should happen. We kind of act as these, mentors and guiders, if you will, or, kind of like liaisons, to help, run the scenarios. Okay, understand what they should be doing. How do we maybe contain the breach first, then work on cleanup, then work on data collection, and kind of really just be there to assure the people like, hey, like it's going to be bumpy. This is going to suck for maybe a week or two, or even longer in some cases, but we can definitely get through it. I'm always a believer that you can pretty much solve any technology problem with enough time, effort, and money, depending on how you look at that. It just takes two of the three essentially. So like those things will come back online, but really having that kind of calm, clear-headed balance, I think, from the experience side of things becomes really important. Because your engineers can be stressed out, their team can be stressed out, people are running on fumes. I've seen plenty of tension over time where people are just so tired, and they kind of just get combative because they're just tired and your body just shuts down. So knowing when to unplug, knowing when to escalate is all just super critical, and it comes with really just experience in handling these events. And you have to have a level headed, because like if you start to panic, then your team panics and the whole thing kind of falls apart. And just there's some things in life that are just out of your control, and just focus on what you can control, and try to drive the outcome and go from there.
And now you're like, as far as I look back as you're saying that, to the people I know that are more level-headed, and you're probably up there on the list of people that I know that are calm and collected in these kind of events. Has that always been has that always been the case, or did you
not
learn
always.
This over time?
Yeah, I think it kind of came with just experience and skill. I mean, I remember like my first few I would call them major outages. Like, man, like my stress was through the roof, but I probably hit it pretty well. So I didn't, I don't go into like a sky is falling type of scenario. And, I've been in plenty of scenarios where like people around me are like really freaked out, and like they've actually commented like, well, how did you just kind of sit there and zone out? It's like, I don't even know half the time. I kind of just, do what I need to do and solve the problem and get through it. So I think, so first off, thank you for that comment. I appreciate that. And, like I said, I've met people that are quite the opposite, and like, two little things can happen and it's like the whole day shuts down. It's like, well, you can't let little things bother you, because like, in my opinion, like stress will just literally kill you. So,
yeah.
That issue of like my health being affected by some crazy amount of stress, because it's like, it is pretty dangerous in my opinion. So
yeah, it almost seems like to you, if there's a job to be done, you don't even think about the stress part. You're like, well, got to do the job first. And then like after that's done, you're like, there's no need to think of the stress. It's all over.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I tell people like, like if we can get through it, like, yeah, it's going to suck for maybe a couple of weeks, but once we're on, like we can move on and on to the next one. And luckily we have a very solid team that kind of has that same philosophy. And, like I said, I've been a part of teams scenarios where that's not the case. And they're usually more, green type people, but, they'll eventually learn these things too. So kind of coaching along the way, like we've had scenarios where, people have called me like in just sheer utter and terrified panic. And it's like, okay, wow, like this is a bad scenario, but your goal is to kind of calm them down, get the right people engaged as a leader, and help kind of remove obstacles and move the thing forward, and, de-escalate the situation. So it's, I don't know. I think it's something that you kind of learn with experience, and you can't like learn it like in a class or school, because you'll never understand like the real life stress around you until it kind of happens to you almost.
Yeah. It's definitely not something that school doesn't teach you how to manage stress.
Definitely not. I've never had a class like Stress 101 other than real life training.
Yeah. I think you'll appreciate this story. So this is one actually my dad told me back when he was just starting IT in the 90s. So this is when you had to back things up on tape. See, I didn't really know what that was, but
there you go.
You have to back things up on tape. And his boss told him that every night at midnight, like this tape needs to be replaced. Like that is your job. If that doesn't happen, then you're out. Like you need to do it. And so he went on a date one night and forgot. And they went to the movies, and it was 10:30 p.m. He gets up from the movie and says, I have to go, and gets out and just goes straight to the office. And like, by the time it was midnight, it was back. And then he went back to the movies. Like, I hope she's still there. And she was, and that turned out to be my mom. And I wouldn't be here if she had left.
That's funny. That's a really good story. But yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, people will, if they take their job seriously, they're going to kind of want to do these things. And some people probably wouldn't do that. And that could very well be a RGE if it wasn't for those tapes.
Yeah.
Something would have happened and they had to restore it from that backup, then that's a bad scenario for sure. So we see that happen quite a lot, actually. So
what's like a modern equivalent of that? Like, is there anything in security that you have to do every single time or else?
Yeah, it actually, backups to this day is still something that people sadly don't always do, and they don't always actually test those backups. So whether it's a tape or kind of a more modern, cloud-based system, that's actually probably like a top 3 thing that you should be doing is those backups and testing the backups. Because I can't tell you how many times I ask somebody, like, oh, do you have a backup? And they say, yeah. It's like, okay, well, then I ask them, when did you last test it? And they kind of give me this, well, I'm like, okay, that means never. Like, you don't know it works. So
yeah,
if you don't actually like test it, you don't know it works. Then if you're in a situation where you need it, that's like having a car in your driveway and like never starting it. And you're like, well, I have a battery in it. It's like, okay, well, does it start? Maybe. Well, then what good's the car, type of a thing. So
yeah,
same thing there.
That's a good analogy. Now, okay, you said that this was one of the top 3 things that people could be doing. What is something for the people listening out there? What is like the easiest things that they can do to become more secure?
Yeah, if we're talking for like, the average consumer,
day-to-day
home user.
person.
Yeah, really, I would say a couple things, right? It's backing up like your files, whether it's like your pictures, your email, things like that. Updating your systems. So like if you have an Apple phone, updating the OS, updating the apps. Windows, same thing. Mac, doesn't really matter. Constantly doing those updates. And then third, I would say use like a password manager. So you can have, these like nice, clean, unique passwords for your email, your banking. And then kind of like a sub bullet to that would be something called multi-factor authentication. So like you might have an example where, hey, like you log into your bank wants to send you a code to your phone. You punch in that 6-digit code. It's another way of showing that, hey, this is Armand. I'm actually logging into my bank. It's me. I trust me. So if your devices support that, then definitely turn those features on.
Yeah. MFA, very important. Password manager, like LastPass, that's the one I use. Probably the most, like not just for security because it generates passwords for you, but for like ease of remembering things. Like I forget if I have a different password for things, I'm going to forget. All you have to do, copy, paste, throw it in there, done. Like it's so easy. Yeah. Highly recommend something like that.
Totally agree.
That would be great. All right. So talked a little bit about what you do and so a little bit about stress, but do you have any like a daily routine or any habits that you follow every day?
Yeah, so probably not maybe every day. It's more like on a weekly thing. So I've been really kind of the last maybe 8 to 10 months really diligent about getting back into working out, kind of focusing on my health first. So working with like a trainer and just really kind of focusing on getting myself back into shape because I've been a big believer that if I have the energy throughout the day, I can be more focused for my job and helping people remove these obstacles, help customers, just have more energy. I can kind of essentially go longer in the day, less prone to things bugging me and stressful because I can just go kind of quote unquote, sweat it out, work it out, feel really good about things like that. So, on a day-to-day kind of weekly thing, I have my little routine. I do it first thing in the morning. I know some people say like, oh, you should do it later in the evening or as a reward to yourself. Great. That might work for you. But for me, I get up, I do it first thing in the morning. Especially Monday, like I do it first thing Monday morning at like 7 a.m. By 8 a.m. I'm done, and I'm just like super pumped up for the week to hit Monday hard. So it always kind of intrigues me when people are like, "Oh, it's Monday again." They're dragging, they're hungover or whatever, and they're just like they want things to continue as a party mode. But hey, I'm ready to rock and roll, and let's go talk to customers. Let's go solve problems and help better secure people. So I love it.
Dude, you're jacking me up. I wish it was Monday right now.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
I'm getting ready for the day. No, I totally agree with the morning gym. I am a big team morning gym person. I don't know. I've never heard reward yourself at the end of the day with the gym. End of the day, it's not happening. I don't like when it's crowded. It's just a hassle.
It defeats the purpose.
I like to be in that morning mindset. Either way, I'd be tired, right? If I wake up and go to the gym or if I go after work, either way, up there, like my clearest hours are like around lunchtime. But I so much prefer starting the day like with that clarity of the gym than ending it like, what are you going to do with all that energy? You just got pumped up. Like now what?
Totally agree. Yeah. Just get it done in the morning. Like it kind of sets the routine because like if I'm like held accountable, I say, okay, look, if my alarm goes off, I get up, I go, and I make it to the gym. That's like a huge kind of quote unquote win for the day.
Yeah.
It totally sets your mind up for saying, hey, you know what? I've already had one win. Let me just keep going. Because I'm also a big believer that if you can say no to one thing, it's easier to say no to other things throughout the day. Like, I shouldn't eat this thing that's bad for me. Who cares? Fine. I'm going to have it anyway. But if you kind of have this mindset of like building the, hey, I'm on track. I did this. Yes. To me, it just puts, like for me personally, it puts me in a way better mindset. I'm more relaxed and kind of calm and focused, and I can get way more work done, like, heavy thinking type work that I need to get done. So
have you read Atomic Habits?
I have actually. Yeah. So that's a great book. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That exactly reminded me of the like that flow chart they has, like the first yes of the day kind of sets you up for the other yeses versus the first no. I've always thought that for me, to anyone that has trouble getting up on the first alarm, the biggest thing that's worked is knowing exactly what you're going to do when you wake up. If I wake up, the alarm hits at 7:00, I know I'm going to the gym. I got my shoes by the door. Like you just make it as easy as possible for yourself to just get out of bed, brush your teeth and then go to the gym. Like
Yeah,
know what
yeah.
you're doing and you're
The
done.
more you can prep the night before, or even like the week before. So another thing I do is like on Sundays, I'll usually prepare for like my week coming up. So whether it's personal stuff, work stuff, I'll look at, hey, do I have any like personal commitments, like dinners, family stuff? What do I have work commitments? Do I have any customer meetings? Or is there anything I need to wear, differently, or dress up differently? Do I have anything I have to be on site for? Look at traffic. Just kind of really plan my week out on Sunday so that I can, again, Monday morning, it's like, yeah, let's do this. Let's just go, baby, and rock and roll.
Yeah, there's nothing like showing up to the office and getting spooked with a big meeting on a Monday morning.
Yeah, you don't want any surprises, right? I mean, we have plenty
Yeah.
of surprises, and like your brains work overtime anyway. So, but the less I have to worry about thinking about something like that, then I can focus on something else. So.
Yeah, cybersecurity is one massive surprise as it is. You don't need work coming in like
checking my news articles to see, like what's happening in the industry, and my little podcast I kind of listen to on the side. Every day they kind of get news updates.
Yeah.
Just stay up to date because like these things happen, and sometimes companies get breached in the middle of the night, and you're just finding out like the next morning. And it's like, well, okay, so that's what I'm going to deal with today.
Yeah, I remember the one big breach that we had earlier this year from a security company. It's like every day you got a different recount of what happened. And
yeah.
Keeping up with that was interesting.
Yeah, sometimes people kind of falter on that. Like when they do have let's just say a cyber event, they sometimes don't know how to handle the breach, meaning like when to communicate, what to communicate. Sometimes more is better. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes saying too much too often can be kind of backfiring. So
yeah,
that's a whole other side of things that people don't realize is sometimes actually how to handle these breaches is just as important as solving the breach itself and getting back online, so to speak.
Is there a law that says what you have to say, or are they? I think I remember reading they're like either have legislature talking about what you have to disclose, or is there anything like that?
It kind of depends, based on like if you're publicly traded or private, what you have obligations where if you're in certain industries, like healthcare, financial sector, are different disclosures sometimes, but there's not really one kind of concrete overseeing body for that. So sometimes people can really botch that up if they're left to their own devices sometimes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And sometimes people don't say anything at all and they try to hide it. And that's almost worse in some cases. So we've seen that.
When does nothing at all help you?
I guess
when you get away with it.
Yeah, there's people that have had breaches and they kind of sweep it under the rug and they've been able to contain it. But for the most part, things do get out, and some of these cyber gangs actually will call the employees, they'll call the investors and say, "Hey, I have your data, you've been breached. Talk to your CEO," and it kind of freaks them out. So they have their ways of digital extortion, if you will, which is pretty wild in itself.
Yeah. What blows my mind about these gangs is that it is their job. Like the funny thing we talked about in the past was the one cyber gang that they were negotiating on a Friday and then got back on a Monday. Like they took the weekend off. They were going 9 to 5. Like this is their 9 to 5 job. It's insane to me that that's an option.
Yeah, it was 100% true. We were working through a scenario with somebody and, kind of going back and forth, and then, around, 5 p.m. in their time zone, essentially, they kind of went quiet and we're kind of joking saying, well, like it's basically Friday at 5. So they're done, and they didn't come back till Monday morning their time. So yeah, like these things do happen and people treat it like a legit business, just criminally legit business. So yeah, pretty wild.
That is wild. Speaking of wild, let's get down to your hobby. And I think this is probably another reason why I see you as so level-headed, because what you do in your free time is so crazy and fast-paced that anyone who can stay calm for this is nuts. But Derek races cars. He's a race car driver, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah. That's it's been I guess a pretty serious hobby of mine for the last couple of years. I've been driving on tracks since probably 2012, off and on, and then got like really competitive with it. I don't know, probably 4 to 5-ish years ago. And to your point, I pretty much race once a month on the track. I'm doing wheel-to-wheel racing with a enclosed car. Sometimes on the track with 40 other drivers. Sometimes different classes. That means sometimes cars are faster, slower. I've done endurance racing, up to 6-hour type endurance racing, nighttime, rain, crazy thunderstorms, all while racing at night, wheel to wheel at 100 plus miles an hour. So definitely a crazy thing I do, but I'd love it. Would not change it for anything.
How did you get started in this in the first place? Were you like someone who as a kid loved watching like the Indy 500 and stuff, or did you just start driving, going fast and went, I think I could go faster?
No, I think according to my parents, I've always been like into cars. So like even as a kid, it was like Hot Wheels. And then actually in my family, like through like my kind of great uncle and grandpa side of things, they used to do dirt bike racing and used to actually be into racing itself.
Really?
So yeah, so actually kind of like it is like in the family, and it maybe skipped a generation or two, and it just kind of hit me. And when I was a teenager, I actually was racing RC cars. So I did that professionally for a couple of years. I traveled across the country. Yeah, I was sponsored, and this is back in like the late mid '90s. So that was a lot of fun too, and it taught me a lot about kind of like mechanical engineering, with the physics of kind of how cars work. And like you'd be surprised how complicated and high tech these cars were even back then. And then kind of grew out of that, and then got into real racing after I got one of my dream cars back in 2011. It was way too fast for the street and way too powerful. And I was like, I'm going to try taking to like an autocross, which is a way people kind of start getting into high performing, where you go to like a coned off kind of parking lot. You kind of have like this course you do, and you do it based on time. And it was fun, but it was very short. You're driving for like say 30 seconds, and you're standing around for like a couple hours to wait again. You're like, well, this is cool, but like I want more. And then I took out the car. I did like what they call like a high performance driving day, where you actually go on the track. I had no idea what I was doing, but you have a coach with you, and you kind of like walk through everything the first times. And after that, I was just hooked. And then it became like a downhill slope, so to speak. So I wanted to go all the time. And then it became, okay, well, let's modify the car. Let's buy different tires. And then it got to a point where I was doing it so much, I said, okay, like now is the time to get to like a serious, like professional built car, or dedicated car, I should say, for safety reasons and things like that. 'Cause I saw some pretty bad accidents. And I was like, oh, I don't want to be involved in this with like myself or my street car, so to speak. I want to be able to drive home. So then it became building a dedicated track car. And then from there, it's been, club racing, amateur racing ever since. So yeah.
What kind of car was your dream car that you first started on, and what kind do you race with now, like the dedicated?
Yeah. So the dream car at the time was a 2011 BMW M3 Coupe. Was super happy to be able to get that car. I ordered it brand new from Germany, so I got to custom build it how I wanted. It came with the exact color I wanted, every feature, every option. And when it was delivered with like 4 miles on the car, which is pretty cool. Like you never see that kind of stuff. And to this day, I still have that car. I'll probably never sell it. I love it way too much. And then coincidentally enough, the car I ended up building is something called a spec BMW E46, which is based on a BMW chassis, a little bit older than the one I have, from like a 2001, 2003-ish era. And what's kind of cool about this class is the people that race it, they're all built relatively close to the same. So we have guidelines that say, hey, everyone runs the same spin, the same tires, the same wheels. So the goal is to make it as close as possible in the car, so the racing is in theory closer, tighter, more fun, and it's a blast. So I race with some really, really good guys, and it's a good group of guys, and it's a good way to blow off a lot of stress and things like that.
I bet that you're not thinking about anything when you're going that fast with that many people.
Not at all.
Like
no.
you are thinking, how do I get first place alive?
Yeah. You're definitely not worried about work or cybersecurity or who got breached. And you kind of like, it's kind of weird. Like, once you put the helmet on, so to speak, you kind of really just kind of zone out and you get in the right mindset to go, 100 plus miles an hour, inches from each other, wheel to wheel, racing for 35 minutes straight at a very, very fast pace, and trusting your other driver and coming out safe and having a fantastic time. So that's what it's all about.
Do you guys ever hang out after? Like, are you all homies? Get a beer or something?
Yeah. We have plenty of get together, after hours at the track, and we all have our own kind of like messaging threads where we do and kind of jokingly talk trash on each other and things like that. So it's a really good group of guys, and so it's a little community. And what's cool is everyone's at a point where they're more than willing to help you out. So if there's a situation where, hey, you need someone to help you fix your car or move it or help load stuff up, like you're always willing to kind of help, or, people offer up food and things like that. So it's like a traveling, second group of friends and family almost with some of these people. So it's a really, really awesome time.
Yeah, it sounds like its own neat community that you guys got going on.
Definitely is. And you meet a wide range of people, that's for sure, like people from all walks of life and backgrounds. And you'd be surprised to meet a lot of IT people of all things, actually. So you never know when it kind of comes up.
So you mentioned your 2011 dream car. What's 2022 Derek's dream car of all time?
Yeah, the car I still haven't gotten yet. I've gotten close. Is a Porsche GT3. So to be fair, I do have a Porsche 911, but not quite a GT3 yet. So that one's still on my list. They're very hard to get. Their pricing is kind of insane right now. So we'll see, maybe in a few years, but that one's on top of the list right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you ever been in an accident? I forget.
I have, actually. So I've been in a pretty, couple like, small little contact ones. And then 2 seasons ago, I was actually in a pretty bad crash doing a endurance race. It was a nighttime race, really kind of dangerous track already because it's very dusty. So when people go off or put 2 in endurance, they say it kicks up a lot of dust. I was going through a very fast section of the track. It was super dusty. It's kind of like driving through snow. Like you can't see more than 2 feet in front of you, and you're going at a very, very fast pace. So I kind of turned where I should have turned or thought I should have turned, ended up going off the track. And actually 4 cars were involved in this accident.
Wow.
I ended up spinning. Once I kind of realized, hey, like I stopped the car, and I realized the first thing you got to do is figure out where you are. Like, are you on track or off track? And once I realized I was on the track, I immediately looked to my left and I see headlights coming at me. And I was like, okay, so I couldn't really move in time. And luckily that car swerved just a little bit to the right, and he basically T-boned my entire left half of the car. And that spun me back around, I don't know, at least once or twice back off the track. But safety gear works, and I was all buckled up, buttoned in, and there's, no damage to me other than a couple little bruises and marks and bruised ego. The car had some significant damage to that, but it's a testament to our safety gear and like the rigorous tests cages go through. And like, so even though it was, not a fun event, I feel pretty safe out there when you're racing wheel to wheel, probably more so than driving on like the freeway, to be honest, because people don't pay attention out there at all. So yeah.
No one's texting when they're racing. At least I hope
no,
not.
Because you can't move your hands that much. So you're pretty much buttoned in and you're rock and rolling.
Yeah, it's like cybersecurity. The risk's never going to be zero, but you want to reduce the impact of that risk as much as possible. It seems like these cars are built really safe, and you do reduce. I mean, you're a testament to that. It sounds like any other day that'd be a horrible accident to get in, but here you are, a couple scrapes out of the way. Yeah,
if it was a street car, it'd be a lot different situation. Like full airbags would have been deployed, and it would have been a pretty bad crash. But in a purpose-built race car, you have like a fire system, you have these massive 6-point belts, you have these things to restrict your neck, you have the giant seats that pretty much hold you in place, you have roll bars. Safety is very big, and these cars go through a lot of inspection process to do that. So it's a testament to the sport in general and how well they can safetify these cars out there. Yeah. And what was going on in your head when you first started spinning? The first thing I thought was like, man, like I hope I don't land on the track. Like that was literally it. And I hope I stay off the track. And then once I realized I was on the track, I was like, oh, this isn't good. And then, it happened within probably, maybe a second, right? It was a very fast event, but it's not enough time to get yourself off the track. And then, you have to kind of radio like your team saying, hey, I was involved in an accident. Like I'm fine, I'm safe, but I'm stuck out here. So at that point, you're waiting for the actual, marshals, if you will, or safety crew to come out until you back off and things like that. And going back to that accident, 4 cars involved. The other car that was actually in front of me, he got hit almost dead nuts, like back from like the actual tail end, and it pushed the whole trunk almost all the way forward to his roll cage. And he got out very slow moving, had to go to a stretcher. They had to pull him off. He was fine, but it was a much more hard impact for that person than for me. So having to watch that was a little bit like, wow, this is a little bit scary out there. But It just, again, shows that at the end of the day, no one was seriously hurt and everyone was able to, race the next day, so to speak, minus the car.
Do people ever start dishing blame for something like that? Like, this sounds like like an accident, like a freak accident. But was he like, damn you, Derek?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that sometimes, like that's why we all have to wear cameras and kind of
that makes sense.
like who's at fault type of a thing. But sometimes these things happen, and there's kind of like the cost of racing sometimes. So you have to be able to kind of, unfortunately, say like if something happens, be able to kind of walk away from like the car if you total it. So like there's no concept of insurance out here, so it can be a very expensive mistake or hobby sometimes, and those are kind of things that can play into it. But for the most part, those things don't really happen too often. It's more gentle rubbing happens once in a while, but for the most part, the groups take a lot of pride in driving super clean, if you will.
Yeah, and these cars ain't cheap, so I can imagine that the cameras really are good when it comes to like insurance purposes or anything like that.
Yeah, yep, exactly. It's more, from a safety standpoint, and not really like a, like he said, you said type of a thing, but just to kind of have it. Plus, it makes for great video to show people and show them like how close the racing can really be sometimes, and like how much fun it can really be out there.
Yeah, you were showing me a video earlier today. I'll definitely throw it a link in the show notes is to the YouTube, because absolutely that was, dude, my heart was pumping when I saw that. Like that looked like so much fun.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. It was like for our group, we do standing start, so it's a little bit even different. So it can make the starts much more intense, if you will, because you're going from 0 to just all in, and I mean literally anything can happen. People can stall, people can swerve off track and miss things. So I've had them work in my favor and sometimes not work in my favor, but just adds to the whole excitement of it all.
I can imagine if the person in front of you stalls as you're jumping to like 60, you have to swerve really quickly and hope you don't flip the person in front of you. And if it happens to you, because I've stalled before, and you just hope the person behind you doesn't cream you. So it's wild. Which only adds to the stress of you stalling.
Oh yeah. So like it's kind of funny. So like even like if I've been through like IT events and cybersecurity events, and like like your stress gets pretty high, but nothing gets my heart pumping like stuff like that. Like it's like probably 10 times off the chart. And I think at one point I was wearing like an Apple Watch and probably said like, "Hey, are you having a heart attack?" Type of a thing. But I don't really do that anymore.
That's you don't want the Apple Watch there for that. That's I
think I freaked it out.
This goes down to like the most, basic needs of survival. Like that's it. Like you're playing with your life there, but in a controlled environment. Don't get me wrong. Like they take as much, not chances, but ways to minimize the risk. But still, you are playing with your life, and I'm guessing your heart can't tell the difference when you look in the rear view mirror after stalling. What's going to happen? How safe you are or not.
Yeah, the good news is for the most part, once you kind of get going, at least for me, I can speak for myself. Like once I kind of get past that first, few seconds of the race and like we're underway, then I usually feel way more calm and relaxed and collected and cool. So it's just that initial like, hey, green flag drops, like, and you're just like all eyes on you, everything's pumping, and then boom, off to the races, literally.
Yeah, that's so sweet. Now, I know you've also got the Airbnb thing going on out in Florida. How's that going?
Yep. It's been interesting. So kind of started this process, a few months ago, ended up getting the house around January timeframe, spent a lot of time finding the right property, getting it furnished, going through all the, let's say, the hoops of getting a license for Airbnb. They don't make it easy sometimes, working with these cities, and but luckily we got some pretty cool people we work with in Florida that made it easy, and what they look for the inspection. So we wanted to have everything buttoned up and tidy to make sure we were all legal before we went live. And then we went live with the platform, and we got, I think, bookings within 24 hours of us being live on the platform, and it's been going really well. So it's another kind of a business venture, if you will, and seeing how that goes. And like my wife and I take it very serious on giving that kind of a white glove experience to our guests and things like that. And I think sometimes we overthink things and we put too much effort into things for people, but I'd rather have, more than less. So, it's been paying off pretty well, and bookings are kind of rolling through, and it's been a learning experience to manage a property 3,000 miles away, right? So building a team was really key for that stuff. Yeah.
So you're a real estate mogul, race car driver, cybersecurity
like
founder.
That. I know. You make me sound pretty good, Armand. I like it.
I'll start doing your intros from now on.
I love it.
Derek, did you ever expect yourself to be starting your own company? Like, is this something you thought of when you were younger, or did it just kind of happen?
It's kind of been through with me off and on through the years. So my dad was always very entrepreneurial. He had his own business for a long time. So I used to help him with that, during the summer times when I was a kid, doing some of the physical work. And I was like, man, like this is kind of tough. I don't really like this. I better go figure something out to like, be a little easier, quote unquote. And then I kind of always been fascinated with computers and kind of, engineering, if you will, and mechanically inclined. So I kind of took on, computer networking, if you will, and ran with it from there. But I always had this idea of like, maybe starting my own venture, doing consulting. And then, the timing kind of just worked out where I was at in my life with my other kind of company and where they were going and like what I saw the gaps were. And ended up talking to a couple of people that were also thinking the same thing. We said, hey, look, let's just maybe talk about doing something together here as a joint venture. And we said, well, fine, let's just take the risk. And we went all in, and here we are. And I love, I've learned more doing this than I ever have during any kind of school or reading through books or anytime YouTube videos or whatnot. So it's been a very eye-opening, rewarding experience for sure.
Yeah, here we are. I can only imagine seeing the growth of Trident Group, like the amount of just the change between your life and everything else in the past couple of years is probably felt like more than just 5.
Yeah, it feels like it's probably 10, with everything else going on, like hair turning more gray and all that, but it's all good. But like I said, I definitely wouldn't change anything. And, I kind of have that, like that so-called bug, I think, in me. And, like no matter what happens, I can see, starting other businesses or ventures and things like that, or kind of continuing to go on my own. Like I like having that control and controlling your own destiny, so to speak. But more importantly, I like seeing us being able to reward and, provide jobs to people and see their like happiness. And, like when we do our Christmas parties and other kind of events and just like how happy everybody is, like that's super ultra rewarding to me. So like, I don't forget those things. And, where we were even just a few years ago to now, that's very important for me to kind of, think about the other people and not just try to, be selfish here and, build something for me. It's like, how do we build something for everybody and our customers and future customers out there?
Yeah, it's really important to be thinking about who you can help. And I think another thing that you seem to be good at, just picking up from this conversation, is your ability to spot the gaps. You've been good throughout the past of finding where there is a need and then figuring out how am I best suited to help that need. And that's a very important trait in all entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to be able to, think outside the box and look for gaps and just really kind of solve those problems is really what a lot of people, kind of do in these types of scenarios, right? And, build the companies for the gap at hand, so to speak. And almost as saying, like, if you can build it, they'll come. And, we've been fortunate based on, like my prior reputation and my partner's reputations of being, I think in theory, good people to work with and good people to work for. We get a lot of great people that want to come work for us now, which is pretty rewarding and awesome. So seeing that kind of, hard work and those seeds being planted from years ago paying off and being able to kind of grow and hire more amazing talent and turn loose and just help those people in turn grow and just keep the cycle going.
Yeah. Good luck on continuing that growth, Derek.
I'm trying every day.
keep going. I'm just we got a couple quick questions and then I'll close it off here. But these are a little more fun ones. So Derek, what music have you been listening to lately? You got any song recommendations?
So I do. I like, I've always been kind of all over the map on music, but I've always liked, techno, EDM type of stuff, even before it became super popular back in like,
I actually
the
didn't
mid-90s.
know that about you. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I have like, I don't know, I like a lot of like that kind of that type of music because I can listen to it while I work or study and it doesn't up with like lyrics. So it kind of just sits in the background. I can kind of just zone out to it. Stuff like that. But I love a good, like EDM type song or kind of, modern stuff or some like Jack Johnson radio if I'm chilling at the house and things like that.
Something laid back.
Yep.
I got a TV recommendation or movie. Have you seen that Netflix show on the DJs? I can't remember what it's called. I'll send it over.
DJs, I have not actually. I'm always looking for recommendations though.
Yeah, it just came out. It's something because someone in my house was watching it. It's like the history of how DJing and EDM became what it is today. I think more DJing,
very cool.
But it was like it started back in the 80s or 90s, and I remember them talking like it was just the DJ was in the corner, like they were just there to turn tables, make the music go. And then it showed that to like Calvin Harris and Avicii and like the actual music genre EDM going pop charts, like not just like festivals in EDM, but like
top 10 everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a really interesting documentary from what I saw. I'll send it over.
Oh, very cool.
And speaking of, do you have any shows or movie recommendations you got for the people?
Yeah, so I just saw Top Gun 2. I loved it.
Fantastic.
Back to being like 10 years old again. Like I was just super, super into it. Loved it. Great movie. TV shows, just wrapped up Ozarks, but man, fantastic show. Loved Ozarks. Kind of sad it's over now, but now I'm just waiting for Stranger Things, and then that's it right now. So yeah.
That's good. Those are some heavy hitters. Top Gun Maverick was the first movie in my adult life where I was like, damn, I would pay to watch that again. That was really good.
Yeah, I've probably seen Top Gun as a kid. Like, I mean, hundreds of times. Like so much so it was on VHS and DVD. And I've watched that movie countless times. And so like to see it and how well they kind of brought it back was really amazing. So I loved it personally.
I think they did a fantastic job of rebooting that movie. Like I was so going into it expecting this to be like really corny, really just like almost cringe, but no, that like I very, very rarely does a sequel to a movie that big live up to it. And I really thought it did. Yeah.
Great movie.
And are you reading any books right now?
Right now, let's see. I do actually have.
I see that library back there.
Yeah, I know.
That's
I'll
nice
grab one here. It's a little bit older. I haven't finished reading it yet, but Winning from Tim Grover is my next one on my list. I'm going to be going through. So
nice. I actually.
But
I was going to say I picked that one up and his other book. I read the other one, but how's Winning?
I haven't started yet, so this is my next one up. I'm trying to do like one a month, one every 2 months. So I'm a little bit behind right now, but that's another thing I'm trying to do better at. Is just read more and focus more on things like that. Even if I can learn one or two little things, it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah. I think he's got a really interesting writing style. It's very, very just blunt and direct, but that's kind of what you expect from
I like his interviews. So like I've watched some of his interviews on YouTube with various podcasts and things like that. So very direct, and I'm a big believer in like kind of coaches and mentors and things like that. So
yeah. And lastly, where can people find you?
Sure. So a couple ways. So we do like a cybersecurity podcast, from the Trident Group Security Squad. So you can find us on YouTube there, and on Twitter and LinkedIn at Pocoroba. Probably more so LinkedIn from a business standpoint. Instagram is probably more so from the personal kind of car side of things. And then Twitter is a little bit here and there, like mix of both. Nice. All right. I'll drop the links to all of that. And I was going to say the chat, but I don't have a chat. It's a podcast. I'll drop the links in the show notes below. Thanks for coming on, Derek. Hold on. Thank you, sir. Have a good one. You too.